From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is an OU update. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio with Ryan Aber, OU beat writer. Ryan, lots to like about the Oklahoma defense to this point. I think everybody's pretty excited about the product that they're seeing on the field after the last few years. And while there's a lot of different position groups you could point to and say, man, they're playing really well, they're playing pretty well. Cornerbacks, guys that have been really under the gun the last couple of years, those guys have been playing really well. What's the secret? What's the change for those guys?
Well, a big part of the change is just Alex Grinch's system and the way that that's worked for the totality of the defense, but especially the cornerbacks. It's made things so much more simple for that group. They know what they've got to do. They can react quickly and make plays. And we've seen, even on the passes that have been completed against the cornerbacks, been completed against guys like Parnell Motley and Jaden Davis and Trey Brown, that they've been well contested. And that's something that we didn't see at times last year. Oklahoma hasn't faced the best offenses that it's going to face. It hasn't faced, Sam Ehlinger. It hadn't faced Spencer Sanders. It hadn't faced Baylor. But they performed well against teams that they really struggled against last year, struggled to defend the pass. And I think a big part of that is the growth of Parnell Motley, who was sort of a boomer bust guy last year, that he would make some really good plays and then he'd just get burned, and you're like, why in the world is he still out on the field? At one point he wasn't out on the field anymore, but he's turned into not only the best cornerback on this team, which is saying something given the fact that Jaden Davis has played so well, and obviously Trey Brown has played well, but one of the best cornerbacks statistically to this point in the country.
Well, you mentioned Jaden Davis, and he's been I think the surprise, you could say, of this defense. But those other guys, Motley you mentioned, I mean, they've largely been getting great production out of guys that played a year ago, could have gotten really frustrated, could have been mentally checked out, and yet they've been really, really good. Is that just a change in coordinators and coaches and a new lease on life, or what's happened here that those guys have been able to go from really being beat down to playing pretty well?
Well, it's not only that there was a change, but what that change was. I think with Alex Grinch and Roy Manning coming in, those guys really were able to sell those players on, hey, if you do what we ask you to do, if you run this system, you're going to be better, you're going to perform better. Those guys bought in really quickly. Talked to Parnell Motley a little bit about that on Monday night, and he said just his whole attitude and mentality changed after that. Also, a sense of urgency for him being his senior year, but he didn't say anything specifically poorly about the coaches that he had last year, but he was effusive in his praise of the coaches that they have now.
Let's talk about Jaden Davis for a second. I mean, he continues to push and push and push to be on the field. Do you foresee just him used in tandem with these other guys and platooning, or is he going to eventually be a guy we see out there at the beginning of games?
I think they like what they've got right now with that. If it's not broke, why fix it? The rotation that they've got allows Trey Brown, Parnell Motley, and Jaden Davis to stay fresh. And when they're able to cycle through those guys, I've had some people ask me, why don't you move one of those guys to nickel or to safety to shore up the depth there? When you do that, you lose what's really good about the cornerbacks right now. And I think Alex Grinch, that's what he wants, at least a three-man rotation, if not a four-man rotation on the back end. And they've got a really good one right now at cornerback, and I don't think they're going to want to mess with that too much.
Well, and like you say, tougher offenses are down the road. Maybe not this week at Kansas, but there will be a time when
2 weeks though.
Yeah.
Against the Longhorns for sure.
Yeah, you'll want three cornerbacks to be able to go in and out against the Longhorns and other teams down the road. Again, Kansas, 11 o'clock kick on Saturday up in Lawrence. It's an ABC game. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.